The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, episode 42.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hey everybody, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter, aka Father Fett, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and the meanings that we can find in them. Today we're discussing the two newest episodes of The Clone Wars by looking at episodes 9, Old Friends Not Forgotten, and episode 10, The Phantom Apprentice. And joining me on the panel today are, first up, Angela Cialana. Hey, Angela.
What's up? How's it going, everybody?
Going a bit stir-crazy, but that's where podcasting comes in. Second this evening, we have Mike Creevy. Hi there, Mike.
Hey, I'm excited to talk about these ones.
Thomas Sanjurjo, welcome aboard again.
Hello, everyone. Looks like we got a full house tonight. Yes.
We do. Of course, last but certainly not least, Andrew Hermes.
Hello, guys. It's good to be back, especially for these two episodes.
Absolutely. So, there's a lot going on in these episodes, so let's just kind of jump right in. First of all, of course, what is your initial impressions? And have at it. I'm seeing all the faces.
Right. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You knew that the series was going to end on a note that didn't fit because it runs into Revenge of the Sith. You know, you knew that there was going to be like this kind of exasperated sigh at the end of this series where it's like, it's not done. And man, it was even bigger than I thought it was going to be.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was, blown away. And I kept saying, right after it, I was talking to my wife about it, cause she wasn't watching with me, but I just kept saying Star Wars at its best was really my summary.
It was on such a grand scale. I think that's why everybody kept saying it was cinematic. And it just felt like I was watching a Star Wars movie and not a Star Wars TV show. One thing that I really loved about this was a lot of hero shots that we got. Like especially the one that pops in my mind is the Obi-Wan one at the very beginning, where close up on Obi-Wan right at the start of that battle, and then also, of course, Ahsoka with the flames behind her, and she has her lightsabers, and this is so cool. So yeah, very epic and grand in scale.
Yeah, I mean, just, we were talking about this before we started recording. The first frame, being a Lucasfilm limited production, that same graphic from 1977 that started it all off. That just, I think, is a good representation of, again, how cinematic these episodes are, and how they're going to close off the Clone Wars series. And yeah, I don't think it's a stretch to say that these are probably the two, in my opinion, best episodes of Clone Wars ever. And they just happen to be back to back. And obviously we're going to get into it, but for my money, this is the best Star Wars that we've had in a while. It kind of satisfied the itch that I was hoping Rise of Skywalker would have. So it's easing that a little bit. And, it just took me back to, I haven't felt this great about Star Wars since watching Force Awakens, to be honest. So this was this was a pleasant surprise, even knowing how epic, we thought it would be. It even exceeded expectations.
Yeah, the word that I wrote down was awesome. I couldn't really, find a better term for it. I agree with Angela. It feels like a movie. It feels like these are part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4 of, a 2-hour long movie. And I think the Lucasfilm Limited logo right at the beginning, and even the fact that there was no fortune cookie, there was it was kind of a red Star Wars logo instead of the normal yellow.
It was the Clone Wars. It was the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith. It was that logo just like that. So we're moving into that time period.
Did you also notice that the music was not the normal intro, but it was John Williams's original score for it? Yeah. So all of those things are clearly tying it to Revenge of the Sith. And then I would just throw out there, too, I was noticing someone pointed out on IMDb that both of these episodes, in fact, The Phantom Apprentice is ranked number 4 out of all TV episodes ever rated from all time, with the caveat that every episode to get on this rank has to be rated at least 1,000 times. And so some of them that are higher have been rated upwards of 15,000 times. The Phantom Apprentice was rated up roughly 2,000 to 3,000 times, so drastically less votes, but still it's like 9.9 and above. So it's ranked number 4. And then Old Friends Not Forgotten is ranked number 23 currently on that list of all episodes from all time. So I think the world concurs that these are some pretty awesome episodes. So with that, we will jump into our discussion with the recap, and of course, like we noted, it opens up not typically Clone Wars style, but with kind of the original John Williams score, and tied very clearly to Revenge of the Sith. And so we're taken out to the Outer Rim on Urbana, where Commander Cody is in desperate need of reinforcements, and we have this very comical fight scene kind of play out between Obi-Wan arriving, and he's trying to help, and he's kind of pushed back behind all the debris, and then Anakin shows up quite arrogantly, but he's. In fact, I thought it was really funny. I even noted it in my notes that, I mean, he's so arrogant at that point, but like fun arrogant that like he just like moves his head to the side to dodge a blaster bolt.
Why are you hiding down there, Master?
Right. There's only 1,000 droids down there tops. You know,
he's like Rex and I are finished with our battle. We thought we'd come help you.
Yeah. So he comes in, has a plan. And Obi-Wan reluctantly lets him take the command, and he walks right across the bridge with no lightsaber, no nothing, and broadcasts to the droids that he's going to surrender. And of course, this is all just a ruse to draw out the tactical droid. And of course, the low battle droids they're gullible.
Did you guys get episode 8 feels from this scene? Because I did.
Yeah,
I felt like it was that scene where Luke is coming out on Crate, right? And he's walking out by himself, and then everybody says, draw the fire on him. And so just those 2 little beats, it really struck me as, we're definitely focusing on Anakin's character. And his change in, of course, going to the dark side, and just has kind of that same beat also with episode 8. So I thought that was really neat. I don't know if that was intentional. Maybe it was, but and especially with all the other guys, hiding behind kind of in the trenches. So
he is the father of Luke, so maybe they share a similar
chip off the old block.
Right. So he manages to draw out that tactical droid, and we see that Rex and all his troopers are hiding out underneath the bridge and waiting for that ruse to play off, and they come out and manage, of course, to completely obliterate the tactical droid and all the droids, and Anakin again kind of struts about that he had the plan to finish the fight really quick. And there's a fun line too that Obi-Wan says to Cody as all of Rex and his troopers are fighting. Obi-Wan turns to Commander Cody and says, "Yes, Cody, you can join in the fun as well.
Go join the fight." I wouldn't want you kids to miss out.
Right. And then, of course, immediately the action takes a different turn. We're going to get into the meat of the episodes, and Anakin is being summoned by someone using the subspace frequency, Fulcrum. And I believe this is the first time we've heard of Fulcrum mentioned in Clone Wars, right? Have we heard of it before?
Yes, I believe.
I think this is it. Yeah, and then he mentions Saw Gerrera immediately afterwards too, which was
who's still
I thought
quite
those were
young.
both great nods. Yeah,
yeah.
So that at least points out a few things, that Saw Gerrera has been using that code name, and Anakin has known about it. But of course, it's not Saw Gerrera who's calling, but it's Ahsoka, and she of course carries that mantle of Fulcrum into Star Wars Rebels, which is a really cool tie-in. But that's enough to get Anakin's attention, and so they go and hear they go to receive this transmission from Ahsoka, and Ahsoka pops up in front of Anakin and Obi-Wan and quickly lays out that she and Bo-Katan have located Darth Maul, and they have the opportunity to capture him. And then we have an interesting dialogue happening between Anakin and Obi-Wan, and that I kind of wanted to, I pointed out in my notes that Anakin seems to be trying to make sense of why Ahsoka left. And he makes the comment, he says, it all makes sense. If Ahsoka hadn't left the Order, then she wouldn't have been where she needed to be. And Obi-Wan is like, well, that's one way to look at it. But it kind of raises the whole debate between fate and free will, or in kind of the Catholic world, divine providence and free will. And so I thought that was kind of a fun thing to at least kind of draw out a little bit, because Anakin probably doesn't want to fully believe that Ahsoka chose freely to leave the Jedi Order, but he's trying to say that fate caused her to leave so she would be where she was in order to potentially capture Darth Maul. You know, when actually it was really, she was free to choose to leave that path of the Jedi Order. And so we would, kind of point out that she was completely free, but divine providence also, if we can say that in the realm of Star Wars, is put her in a place where she needed to be to do some good, to help bring justice, hopefully, to Darth Maul.
Well, it's kind of tragic too, because you can see the seeds of, with him, the same reasoning, where he's going to be able in short order here to pretty easily run down this rabbit hole in his mind of how he's sort of fated down the path he's going to go down, kind of applying the same logic. So I couldn't help but notice that in his clear, like the whole attachment thing, again, bearing out like it has with, about Satine, and Padme, that whole thing between the difference with Obi-Wan and Anakin. So yet another one of those I thought was just an interesting connection there.
And since we're on that topic, Darth Maul also tells Ahsoka in the next episode, what was it? Every choice that you've made
has led you to this
has
moment.
led you to this moment.
Yep.
And so it's basically that same idea that, that this is your fate type of thing. And I guess we heard that also in episode 8, did we? With Rey and Kylo Ren, where he was trying to convince her. I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch, but
there's a lot of implication towards that in the
destiny thing. Like the Emperor says, Snoke says, they always, it's your destiny. It's your destiny. It's like,
so I'm wondering,
you don't have a choice.
How? Yeah, I think we don't hear that too much on the Jedi side necessarily. Right. So yeah, that is interesting. That whole concept of free will versus what has been, I guess the Jedi are a little bit obsessed with the prophecy, of the chosen one, but that seems to be more of a distraction than really what they need to be concerned about.
Well, and even Luke, I mean, I'm jumping around here too, but in Rise of Skywalker, when he brings up with Rey's destiny, it's not so much like you don't have a choice. It's like encouragement, that we're with you to make this choice, but that's, you have to do it. We can't do it for you. And so it's a little different, it emphasizes that freedom more, that it's not just freedom, like it's rooted in something bigger, that there is a bigger will, but it's not something that's just like sucking you into it. Like you can't resist it.
Right. Well, and I think there's two ways to look at this that are really interesting, because it's the Jedi are always very much about being in the moment, being present. And if you listen to Yoda, Yoda's like, stop focusing on your past, You can't really rely on what the Force is telling you about the future. You just need to be here. You need to stop worrying about everything else and be here right now. Whereas the Sith seem to live in everything but the present. They're watching the future. Destiny. It's my destiny. It's the path that's chosen for me. Or they're obsessed about something that happened to them in the past. And you see that here with Maul through these two episodes, that he's obsessed with the fact that he was removed from this position of being apprentice, and he's also trying to get revenge or move forward and kill the person who's going to become the new apprentice. So he's looking ahead as well, but he's never right where he is, which is with Ahsoka in this moment, to be able to see where she is. And that's what's great about Ahsoka, is that she's not concerned about all of that other stuff. She's very much present right where she is, and she's not concerned with destiny, but she's also not like trying to force her will onto anything. She's just making the best decision that she can right where she is.
And that's what Obi-Wan is doing. Going back to the plot of this episode, that he is very aware that his feelings will distract him and cloud his judgment, especially when it comes to Maul. And so he's great at being unattached from that situation. He's very wise, and you can see that in him, and you can see that clearly in Ahsoka. She's very focused. She's like, Anakin, we'll catch up later. But Anakin looks very hurt. He looks like he wants to have that conversation now about, well, why did you leave? How are you? What's going on? And, it's that whole concept of being attached and having your mind in other places.
Well, and I like what you mentioned about it. It prevents them from being in the present moment. And I mean, even just on a human level for us, it's, you can't live in the past or in the future. And if you do that, you're going to miss out on the present. And I always like, it's kind of a small little kind of wordplay, but, God is the God who says that I am, not I was or I will be, but he's, the God he's God of all eternity, of course, but he very much is present right here, right now. And that's of course what we have to focus on. So Ahsoka is a great mirror against Anakin, but also against Darth Maul in these episodes. Ahsoka does arrive and gets to meet up with Anakin and Obi-Wan, and quickly kind of discusses the issue at hand, which is Maul, and not so much on what happened or anything. And Bo-Katan is there and says that Maul is on Mandalore, and she requests the Republic to send forces so that they can have the numbers for a siege of Mandalore in order to capture Maul and prevent him from escaping. And they move off. Anakin and Ahsoka, after that initial kind of conversation, do finally get a moment to reconnect when things are sort of quiet. And he has a surprise for Ahsoka, which was really touching. Couple surprises. The first one would be is that he takes her to the hangar bay where Rex and his troopers have all painted their helmets to match Ahsoka's face coloring, out of honor and respect for her.
I cried. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I wasn't sobbing, but it was touching.
Well, and I think that was probably exactly the impact that they were hoping that it would make, because it shows how far they've come from the first of the season, when Ahsoka is, a young Padawan who doesn't know anything, and Rex, doesn't trust her, and how their whole relationship has grown.
And it's so heart-wrenching when you're like, oh, they're just moments away from the betrayal. And it's like, And even Anakin says that line, loyalty means everything to the clones.
Yes.
And I'm just like, no.
Well, it felt sort of like a ticking time bomb, because we all know what's going to happen. We all know that especially at this exact moment, once she has seen all the clone troopers and has that moment with Rex, Obi-Wan rushes in and announces that the Separatists are attacking Coruscant. And so we know that exactly this is right before Revenge of the Sith begins. And Order 66 is just approaching really quickly. So, and to watch these episodes and to, not know when that bomb is going to drop is going to be, heart-wrenching. So Obi-Wan rushes in and announces that the Separatists are attacking Coruscant and that him and Anakin and the troopers have to go. And we had a very awesome Ahsoka moment there where she basically points out to them that this is exactly why people have lost faith in the Jedi, is because they're going to help the Chancellor, but Bo-Katan and her people are going to be completely ignored.
That's not being fair. I'm not trying to be fair. That's a great line.
That's sass, man.
But I was just going to say, it reminds me of like sometimes when I would yell out to my mom sometimes, like, it's not fair. She's like, life isn't fair. And I'm like, oh, come on. Like Ahsoka's twisting it around on Obi-Wan. He's supposed to be the one who says that to her.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's Anakin who has kind of the level-headed idea on what to do next.
Right.
He suggests that they divide the 501st and promote Rex to commander, and Ahsoka can be his advisor, and they can all go help Bo-Katan on Mandalore. And Obi-Wan has a great line here that they bring up a few times, but he says, I fought Maul once. Better to capture him. He doesn't seem to stay dead.
Ain't that the truth?
Which is, yeah.
I was thinking ahead of time. I mean, I'm sure everyone else was too. I didn't really expect them to necessarily say it, but I was kind of thinking like, what would Obi-Wan's advice be? Like, don't cutting him in half doesn't work. So when he did it, I just died. I wrote down like, he made my joke, sort of. It's like, I love it.
Well, and for anyone who hasn't yet, you have to go hunt down the final battle between those two, because it is a very intense moment, and it's probably one of my favorite lightsaber fights. Out of the entire Star Wars canon, and it's like 3 strikes. It's literally just you blink and you'll miss the entire thing. But that's what a lightsaber fight should be able to be. It should be that, and should be beautiful. And I'm not saying anything bad about the lightsaber fight we got in these 2 episodes, because it was amazing. But the story is so important to making the lightsaber fight work. And if you haven't seen the end of the Obi-Wan Maul conflict, you need to go hunt it down and find it, because it is really amazing. An amazing piece of cinematography.
I was just going to say, if you just watch the movies, you miss all of this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and you can watch just the movies and not get into any of this, but I just feel like I don't want to say I was skeptical at first when they brought him back, but it just, I think a lot of people probably were, because it was so unexpected, and there were even jokes online about like he comes crawling out. I don't know what it was, how it should have ended maybe or something. And he crawls up to like the funeral scene in episode 1, and like, the Emperor, he's like, are we going to find out who the master is? And he crawls right to Palpatine. He's like, master. And he's looking around like, and he's like, how did you survive? He's like, I was saved by fans, and it's just, but to turn it into like some 30-year rivalry, between, it really works. And it's just, I'm loving seeing this kind of linchpin come together that we were missing this whole time because of stuff.
He is such a pivotal character in Star Wars now. He's touching every property, really.
Right. And you see that. Yeah. That's what I thought. That's exactly what I thought when I saw the 2 of them in the throne room, and they're facing off, and I'm like, oh my gosh! Like you talk about shadow players, like these 2 guys right here. This is the major behind the scenes have changed everything.
Right. Yeah. If you just watch the movies, I mean, Darth Maul has like 2 lines in Phantom Menace. And hearing him go like some pretty long monologues that were brilliantly written, and you see his motivations and like the struggle he's going through. He was really a one-note character in Phantom Menace, but seeing it now, and this is the best Maul that we've had so far. I mean, better than what we've seen from previous Clone Wars episodes and in Rebels. I mean, this is the best Maul that we've gotten so far, and you're getting the best of all the characters, honestly. This is the best Ahsoka's been. This is the best Anakin. I mean, you can even argue I don't think it's that much of an argument to say this is the best Anakin that we've got, period. So, because you're getting the cockiness that you were talking about, and he's hilarious. And you're getting the little hints of this is all gonna go to real quick, and
you see that he's this bratty kid that's never grown up, but he's become more powerful, and that's like you watch him through the Clone Wars and you see a lot of that, but they wrote it so well into these 2 episodes that you just see that bratty kid from Tatooine, still there.
Yeah. And this is pod racing. Oh, no.
Well, and it just adds so much depth to the movies, especially 2 and 3, where otherwise it just feels so disjointed almost.
Have any of you guys gotten a chance to watch episode 3 around this time? Because I really want to do that now in the wake of this.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Quarantine life. You've got I know, right? Sometime to
they're all there.
Yeah. So moving on, Anakin also then has the other surprise for Ahsoka is that he has her lightsabers and he gives them back to her. But of course they're better now. They're blue. Yeah. I noted in my notes here that you can also hear Yoda's theme playing in the background when she receives her lightsabers back. I found a lot of those musical cues throughout these that I thought was really cool.
Yeah, we missed one just before this too when they were talking about Maul. There was you could hear the Duel of the Fates start to play in the background.
That's
right.
Talking
Talking about Maul.
Very cool. Yeah, these are so tied to the movies that way. It's awesome. So Anakin and Ahsoka do bid farewell to each other, and Anakin goes off to help the Chancellor, and Ahsoka and Rex head out to Mandalore.
But she says to him, "Good luck." Yeah. We got to talk about the good luck thing. There's no may the force be with you. There's good luck. And that was a great play on the two of them.
Yeah. And that might very well be the last time they're in the same room together. I mean,
until later on.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Never mind.
as Anakin and Ahsoka, yeah.
I mean, before everything goes to But yeah, that's that. You notice in that scene, that good luck, there was kind of like a look on Anakin's face, like for a split second. I mean, at least to me, maybe I was just seeing it in my head, but there was a little like, I might not be the guy that you once knew, the next time we see each other. There was kind of hints of that. And also in Ahsoka's face, like when she looked at Anakin, like even though she hasn't found out everything from Maul yet, as we're going to see later, but she kind of looked a little worried, after that goodbye or good luck.
Forced premonition. So Ahsoka and Bo-Katan and Rex are all headed to Mandalore, and as they're approaching, Prime Minister Almec contacts them and demands to know the meaning of the invasion, and Bo-Katan, very clearly not her sister, Duchess Satine, tells him point blankly that she knows he's Maul's puppet, and even though she's going to be breaking all these treaties, and will probably be seen as an enemy in the eyes of the people, she's not going to stop and let up, and she goes gung-ho into this fight.
I feel like Bo became a really great character in Star Wars just through this one episode. I mean, we've seen her in other episodes, of course, but we really got to see her character more in this episode, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, because we've just seen her more or less as a member of Death Watch, right?
Yeah.
And even though that's sort of, she mentioned in the last episode that's Death Watch is no more, but yeah, she
features very prominently in Rebels.
Yep.
But which I have some questions about too with some of those Mandalorian connections, but that's another day. But yeah, this was really like a big launch point, I think, for her.
So they launch their attack on Mandalore, and we also then get a brief moment of Ursa Wren. She contacts Bo-Katan and tells her that she knows that Maul hasn't left the city, and she knows that Saxon is assembling his troops to attack. So that was a nice cameo. That, of course, Sabine Wren's mom. So they fight their way to the surface, which was a really cool kind of a scene with Ahsoka and Rex and Bo-Katan. Lots of jetpack fighting as they're trying to get to the surface.
For Ahsoka, who doesn't need a jetpack.
But that was really funny because Rex tells her, like, I'm sorry I don't have a jetpack for you. And she just kind of is like, well, I'll race you to the surface. Which she, of course, wins. So they do manage to fight their way down to the surface and enter into the city. And Saxon escapes into the Undercity. And Bo-Katan heads to the throne room to deal with the Prime Minister and tells Ahsoka to go find Maul. At which point Ahsoka heads down into the Undercity, and her troopers are down there, and Captain Vaughn tells her that he saw Gar Saxon escape into the tunnels and that he was quite in a hurry, and so he suspects that Maul might be down there. And so Ahsoka goes in after him, and Bo-Katan charges into the throne room and fights her way to Almec, and after a very brief fist fight, she captures him And Almec tells her that Maul wanted to bring the Jedi here, although Bo-Katan brought the wrong one. So we already know that, you know, there's this was actually playing right into Darth Maul's plan all along. And of course, Bo-Katan realizes that it's a trap and tries to warn Ahsoka and can't get a hold of Ahsoka. And she's continuing down into the tunnels and of course gets surrounded by Saxon's troops, and Darth Maul walks in and confronts her. And of course then mentions that he was hoping for Kenobi.
So by this point, the Maul design on the Mandalorian helmets we've seen, and apparently on StarWars.com they said during production they called them Maldalorians.
I've seen the hashtag.
Yeah, and I thought that was kind of neat because of what the clone troopers had done with their helmets. So you kind of see like the opposite on the other side. And another thing that I was thinking at this point in the episode was, oh my gosh, it's Mandalorians in tunnels. Like, this seems so familiar because of the Mandalorian.
Yeah, lots of nods all over the place in these couple of episodes, definitely.
Was anyone else waiting for some Mandalorian to tell Ahsoka, this is the way? This is the way.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously, wow.
Trying to find it. This is the way. Like, oh, man.
That would have been too on the nose, don't you think?
I thought it was really interesting here when you're talking about Maul. Maul's whole gambit here was to try and attract Obi-Wan. And from Maul's perspective, he's like, how could you resist this opportunity? I've set it up so well, you know, there's no way that Obi-Wan's not going to come. But, you know, Angela, it goes back to what you were talking about earlier, where Obi-Wan's finally like leveling off and making some really solid, level-headed decisions about what he's doing and where he's needed and where he's supposed to be. And, you know, he could have very easily gone, no, we need to go get Maul. That's definitely an important part of it. But he says, no, it's more important for us to go back and follow what the council is saying and go back to Coruscant.
Especially if he wanted to get revenge for Duchess Satine, which he chooses not to do.
And nobody knows how challenging of a foe Maul is than Obi-Wan, and yet he's so cool. Like, as he's leaving, he's just like, you know, his little advice again to Ahsoka, like, oh, try to capture him, you know, like he knows what she's up against, and he's like doesn't seem to have that big of a problem. You know, he's not like the dad, like behind the training wheels, kind of like, okay, easy. It's like, no, you go ahead and you're gonna go fight this dude and capture him, and I have to go do this thing. It's like, okay.
I also love Sam Witwer's portrayal of Maul. So, and that comes more into play in the next episode, and there's a few other random things I'll point out as we go along too. But so, was there anything else on that first episode that you guys wanted to bring up?
Yes, I had written down from the Clone Wars download. They mentioned, or it wasn't the download, it was StarWars.com episode guide, that Kanan Jarrus is actually makes a cameo in the very beginning of this episode, when they're recapping. That he is Caleb Doom, his actual name. And he's this little kid. You can see him. He's like this little kid Padawan standing next to his master, Depa Billaba. So I thought that was really cool.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
And he really became one of my favorite characters, you know, through Rebels.
It's really cool that they can do that because they sort of took this break and they did all of Rebels first, and then they're coming back to finish this. Just makes it a more coherent galaxy.
Yeah, it wouldn't have worked for then Rebels to be like, I was that kid in the flashback, or, you know, like 10 years ago. Okay.
Right. Cool. Well, jumping then into part 2, we kind of mentioned before that this one opens up with no recap and really no introduction at all, but it's sort of just a straight continuation of the previous episode, which again adds to that cinematic experience that this is one complete story. It's a movie in 4 parts, which is really cool. And so we pick up right where Darth Maul is encountering Ahsoka and remarks that he doesn't know her. And have you guys seen The Incredibles?
Yes.
And I
recently as well.
In fact, I just saw it last week with my family. But one of the things that I kept thinking about, and Maul does it well, but like he's monologuing, like and like he's
such a dramatic character, though, right?
Yeah. So, but he's also sizing her up.
Yeah.
You know, and that's and we see that he sizes her up to a point where he's like, wait a minute, I don't have to go back and be Sidious's apprentice. And that's kind of the crux of this episode, is that you see him evolve from just wanting to kill Skywalker to get back at Sidious to going, wait a minute, I can take Sidious. I could become the next Sith master and have my own Padawan, and I can do this. Like, this actually works.
Let the past die. Darn it, Kylo. No, it's that whole mentality, you know. And I love, like, I'm reminded too. I'm a big fan of the the pitch meeting, you know, things that is it Ryan George? Is that his name? I think on Screen Rant that does those. And I love when he throws in quite a bit. And he's like, and then he's just going to show up and dump a whole bunch of exposition.
Yep.
And so, but the way he does it, I love, you know, those little things that just give you that delightful little, like, oh my gosh, like it's coming up, when he's like, oh, you know, the moment may be upon us, and you're like, oh no, he knows what's happening.
Yeah.
and he's like paranoid, you know.
Yeah.
And
but he even has that line. I just want to say real quick, because Thomas, this reminded me, I wrote it down here. It connects to what you were saying earlier about like their focus on, you know, future and past, and not being in the present so much, because he says that thing about like I can thrive in the chaos that will come.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so he's already getting that mentality that, you know, when we see him in Solo, like he's 10 years into that game plan sort of thing. So, you know, he's already like, how can I make the most of this for my own gain?
I was impressed with just how much Darth Maul knew. I mean, so he very clearly at this point, he points out that, you know, he could surrender, but it would be pointless because the Jedi and the Republic aren't going to be controlling the galaxy, but that it's going to be Darth Sidious. And even later on, he kind of lays out that they're just pawns in this greater plan. And so he knows he kind of has put together all those pieces, and even the Force vision. But what's essential at that point is that he at least reveals to Ahsoka that Darth Sidious is going to be the one controlling the galaxy. And they kind of briefly fight as Rex is coming in to save Ahsoka, but Darth Maul kind of mentions not yet and pushes her and runs away. So yeah, he's sort of got this, like, and they mention it later on, that he's like got this sense of dread about him, but he like knows it's coming, but doesn't quite know when, but he knows that it's not yet. And so now's not the time, and pushes Ahsoka, and he runs off into the tunnels.
It's a little bit reminiscent of when we first saw him come back, where he was like this insane character with spider legs, you know, that kind of, just, I don't know, the attitude. Obviously, he's kind of straightened up since then, but it was almost like he was sort of teetering on the edge a little bit.
I felt very much that he was sort of unstable.
Yeah.
Well, I think he really does a great job of embodying the dark side of the Force, right? The fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and that whole descent into madness. And you know, where the characters that we think of when we think of the dark side of the Force are like Darth Vader, who's just collected and calm and methodical and cold, or Sidious, who's just this megalomaniac. But you know, I mean, Maul represents that other kind of frenetic energy that you can get from just raw emotion, like pushing you through everything that you do. And so there are times where he's like terrified, and there's times where he's incredibly angry, but he's always responding to whatever his emotion is pushing him to.
He sort of thrives on chaos, I think, is even how they kind of described it at one point. But yeah, and he's got the face of evil too. You know, just his look is crazy. So he escapes into the Undercity, and Ahsoka regroups with Bo-Katan in the throne room, and they are on a hologram transmission with Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka is telling them that about Darth Sidious, and Obi-Wan reveals what the Jedi Council suspects, that Darth Sidious is the Sith Lord who orchestrated the Clone Wars from the beginning. I thought that was quite on the nose. I didn't realize that he was even, or that the Jedi Council was aware of that. However, Darth Sidious is kind of looking at them right in the face, and they're not seeing Palpatine. But he learned that, of course, Obi-Wan learned the name from Count Dooku. And it's at that point that he reveals that they won't really be able to use Count Dooku to understand things anymore, because Count Dooku is now dead, because Anakin killed him. And he reveals that he is being sent by the Council to hunt down Grievous on Utapau. And so that gives us another clue as the timeline of all of this, that this is again happening right in the middle of Revenge of the Sith.
And he uses like almost exactly the same wording. You get the impression he had just talked to Anakin with the whole, like, you know, that little line about, you know, he's stayed in power long after his term. You know, it's like almost identical, you know, so yeah.
Yeah, you can see Obi-Wan just, like in real time, just putting the pieces together and really allowing himself to think about like, oh, wow, yeah, like Anakin killed, you know, Count Dooku. And you can see the disappointment as he's saying that.
Right.
You know, as he's saying it. And it reveals a lot, and you're starting to see, even though Obi-Wan is calm and collected, and as Obi-Wan is, those little moments kind of show you that he's kind of putting it all together.
Well, and you guys remember, because I was just thinking, he killed Count Dooku right after Obi-Wan was knocked out, who then wakes up in the you know, the elevator shaft. And he's like, "Did I miss something?" So I've always been like, he didn't. I'm pretty sure Anakin wasn't quick to be like, "Yeah, Master, the thing is, I killed him when he was unarmed and anger."
Right.
You know, it's always, I've always felt like they don't really show it, but you get the impression it's like, yeah, I took him out when he was attacking me, and it was war. You know, so but you from this, I got the impression there is more of like a suspicion there. Obi-Wan knows something's off.
But this is also something that has come up in the Clone Wars. I remember one of the other episodes that we had reviewed where. And I forget which episode it was, but there's that point in it where Anakin just chooses to take out the villain because he doesn't.
That was with Duchess Satine.
Yeah,
when he walks up behind the guy that's got Duchess Satine, and they're trying to create the moral dilemma, and Anakin just does what he sees as necessary.
He was going to blow up the ship.
Yeah. So like, and again, that's awesome how it fills in all those gaps to see the Anakin from, you know, episode 1 and 2 to episode 3, that this is a consistent character. So we at that point, we hear that Obi-Wan tells Ahsoka privately that Anakin is put on special assignment to observe the Supreme Chancellor because the Council wants to know what his true intentions are. And Ahsoka, of course, recognizes that she disagrees with the Council and knows that Anakin does too in that. And before they can really do anything with that, Rex interrupts with the news that there's been another attack, and Ahsoka is being called to go help. And we then switch to Ahsoka arriving back in the Undercity.
Wait, can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
Sorry. I want to ask a question. Well, okay, so Obi-Wan in that conversation with Ahsoka says the Council isn't always right. Right? And then as they're parting, Ahsoka says, "Tell Anakin," and then she trails off, and Obi-Wan says, "I will." So what do you think she wanted to say?
I was thinking about that. I wrote that down, and it was, I don't know. I don't know if I could think of exactly what she was trying to say. I mean, I think it's a combination of like, tell Anakin, I don't know, be careful or don't fall for politics, you know, Palpatine's politics or whatever. I don't know. Like maybe she obviously knew, I mean, it's the Jedi Force, whatever, doing its thing. And there's something wrong about it. And that obviously they both are kind of sensing. So I think she wanted to say something along those lines. And I think Obi-Wan got it. And, you know, Obi-Wan, obviously we see with his, whenever he gives advice to Anakin, especially in this sort of period of time, it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to tell him, you know, just straight up. I'm just going to tell him what I think he should do. But he knows like Anakin is probably not going to listen. And, you know, his attitude, you know, has become like, very well, okay, I'll try to do my best to kind of sort of, you know, like in the first episode, you know, with Anakin's plan, you know, in the beginning, like obviously it ended up working, but Obi-Wan had that hesitation. So that's kind of where he's at, and for better or worse, I mean, ultimately it ends up being for worse. But again, we're seeing Obi-Wan in this sort of like just kind of being calm and collective and just doing, you know, doing everything according to what the Council wants and what he feels is towards the right path.
That was an intense moment, and I like that they put it in, and I like that they left it unsaid. Those two things are both very significant, and I think really they say a lot about the characters in there. With both Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, that like you're saying, Andrew, they don't know what to do with Anakin. Like they're not really sure. I don't think Ahsoka has as clear a view as Obi-Wan does of what's going on, but at the same time, she's concerned for him and about him. Yeah, and I couldn't stop thinking about the entire scene in Rebels when she runs into him again, and it's just this whole time like watching it, especially when she's in the throne room with Maul and she's talking about him. It's just like, oh gosh, it's so gut wrenching, and it makes that scene was gut wrenching enough as it was, and now to see this happen, it's just like, oh man. But yeah, I like that they put it in, and I like that they left it unsaid. So both of those things.
I had a friend who threw out the idea that it's probably whatever Finn was going to say to Rey. I was like, yeah, well, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, no, it is. Gosh. It's so like, gut wrenching. I think I keep using that same phrase too. It's
And my thought, my first thought was maybe there was some kind of inside joke that I have missed in not seeing the Clone Wars. But then the other thing that's kind of come to me is it could also just be Ahsoka wanting to convey to Anakin to do what you feel is right, even if it's not in line with what the Jedi Council would propose, because that's what Ahsoka did when she chose to leave. And if Obi-Wan is recognizing that the Jedi Council isn't always right, maybe he is also recognizing that, there's what's right, and then there's following orders that may not be right.
And right before this, wasn't Obi-Wan asking Ahsoka to talk to Anakin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
which I don't know if that's ever even going to happen.
Yeah, right. So again, because I think that good luck scene between her and Anakin was probably the last time they had a positive interaction, because we know what the next episode is going to entail.
Mm-hmm. Angela, what did you think?
I honestly had no idea, so that's why I was asking.
And maybe that's, like Thomas said, it's kind of intentionally vague. So back to the Undercity, Ahsoka heads down there because she's been called on to help because there was an attack down there. And she talks with one of the troopers named Stirling, who tells her that Maul attacked them and captured an ARC trooper named Jesse and has kept him alive. And we swap to Jesse encountering Maul, and Jesse vows that he's not going to tell Maul anything. And Maul...
No, I thought there was a really interesting thing here, too. The clone trooper says to them, he recognized that he was one of the older ones.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of laden meaning to that. Like, I know that the implication is that he's been around a while, right? Mm-hmm. But it almost felt to me like they were saying, oh, the older clones are fundamentally different somehow than the newer batch of clones.
Like they're more pliable.
Right.
Like it would be easier for him to get information out of him.
That, and possibly even that they don't have Order 66 programmed into them. Like they're not under this direct control of the Emperor. And so that's why Maul would specifically pick this particular generation of clone to grab, because he could do something to this generation of clone, and there wasn't a protection there, or it was one of the clones that was around when he was involved in the planning phases, and so he knew how to interact with them. Whereas, after he's out of the picture, the new batch of clones after he's out of the picture is not something that he can interact with that way. So I thought that was really significant scene.
Yeah, that's a good point. That might play into, Rex taking the chip out, because that's something coming up that we obviously know. So that could play into that.
And they don't really make it explicit why he wanted him to be one of the older ones. But either way, he very much is going to get the information out of Jesse the way that he planned to. And he also begins to talk to Jesse about how even the clones were all part of the plan. And he says, the plan that he wasn't even made aware of, but that he had to play his part. And that's where we kind of get a little bit more of the motivation of Maul himself, because he he says that he was cast aside and forgotten after he played his part in this plan, and that he now wants to thrive in the chaos that he knows is coming. And before then he probes Jesse's mind, he orders Saxon to go and take out the prime minister before he tells Bo-Katan anything about what's going on. And I found it, I guess I wasn't sure, so I want your guys' opinion, but when he then probes Jesse's mind to get the information that he seeks, and his question is, or no, I guess I might understand this, but his question is, who is Ahsoka Tano? Mm-hmm. And I guess my first watch, I was unsure of why he was focused so clearly on her. And I think kind of talking through it a little bit more, and Thomas, your insight kind of, I guess, is putting that piece together for me, is that if he wants to use her as an apprentice, then he does need to know who she is. And because really she's not Anakin or Obi-Wan, or, he's not pulling information about them, but he's specifically looking into who Ahsoka Tano is.
Right. Well, think about who his master was. Sidious is always trying to use someone's weaknesses against them to manipulate them. And I think that was my interpretation of why he was asking who is Ahsoka Tano, because he wanted to know how to manipulate her in order to get what he wanted.
Yeah, and he's wondering, like, okay, he had this grand plan to get Obi-Wan over there. It's like, okay, why is she here instead? Like, why did they send her? There must be something special about this one.
And of course, he even later on reveals that Obi-Wan was only, I think, really part of the plan to get Anakin there. Right. To take out the groomed future apprentice of Sidious. So Maul interrogates Jesse, and we go back to Bo-Katan and Ahsoka, who are talking to Almec in his prison cell. And Almec reveals to them that Maul isn't trying to escape. And
in the most tedious way possible.
Yeah, seriously. Gosh.
Yeah, he then, reveals at least that Maul wanted Kenobi here and another person, and wants to try to negotiate for that name that he just can't seem to remember.
I was like, if this guy dies before he says Anakin, like, I was going to be really, really annoyed. It's like, is Ahsoka just going to keep wondering, like, who this other person is?
It's like Monty Python, it's in the castle of, must have died while carving it. Like, come on, say it. Can I ask you guys, I have a question too, because I don't really know, this whole thing made me think, and I wrote a note on it. What are Sith visions? Because, like the Emperor talks about that, like, I have foreseen it. Vader tells Luke, the Emperor's first, like, there's some kind of like prophetic, supposedly real thing that at least on a few occasions is right. So I don't know.
It's something that's fundamentally different than what Jedi can do. And that's why, because when Yoda talks about visions of the future, he says that they're always clouded with emotion. Right. And so the Sith are actually able to cut through that because they're so in tune with the emotions that they can pick which emotions they want to look at while they're going through. And this is kind of I don't know if it's still canon, but it was old canon. And so the actual Sith, like the way back when there was a group of people that were called Sith, they could see the future, and they could see the future clearly because they were so connected with their emotions and the way that they could watch the path forward. And then part of it is that the Sith can see the way forward, and you kind of get the implication that it's because they can make the way forward, right? So they can, they can see the emotional paths that are going to lead, and then they can manipulate the path that they want and kind of follow down that path that they would like to happen by making this person angry or that person scared or however they want to do it.
Yeah, I remember in Rebels there was a little bit of discussion about that, or illustration of that, with Maul trying to make Ezra Bridger his apprentice. Right. And so Maul had a vision ultimately that I think Obi-Wan was going to be on Tatooine, and that was kind of how that all transpired, was through some sort of dark side vision. But then also it had to do with the holocron that he had. So, but I think from all of that, what I had taken away with as far as the canon was that the dark side users can see the future, but I didn't get the impression that it was set in stone or it was definitely what was going to happen, but that they saw different, I guess, iterations of what could be. And and so then they could ultimately pursue what they wanted to as a possibility.
I mean, that can do a lot to explain how Sidious was so able to manipulate everything, because he's playing on emotions throughout all of this
constantly.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things, like, if you were privy to knowledge of the future, you might make decisions differently than you do, but at the same time, there's a lot of times where it would be just horrible to be to have that knowledge, because you know that if you make this decision, it'll save your life, but it'll cost someone else theirs, or you know not only the actions to take to get to what you want, but also the consequences that fall out. You know, it's that hindsight's 2020. Well, now you've got foresight, and it's 2020. And you have to make the decisions that will cost something along the way. And the Sith are willing to, like, take that step and, you know, and cause all the havoc that they want as they're trying to get what they're after.
And I think that ties very clearly back into what we were talking about earlier about fate versus free will, is that even though, like, Darth Sidious can see these visions of the future, or Maul can, doesn't mean that that's how exactly they will play out. Because Darth Sidious... at the end of Rise of Skywalker finally meets his end, and that's obviously not what he would have, you know, not the path that he was trying to lay out in front of him. So even though he may have foreseen him and Rey joining, she chose differently. Kind of preserves free will in all of this too. There was another cool moment there where Almec is shot by Saxon, and, you know, as he's dying, he does reveal the name that Darth Maul that came to Darth Maul in the vision, and he says it was Skywalker, and there was a subtle Imperial March theme right at that moment. So also really cool. Bo-Katan then immediately runs after Saxon and chases him, and there's this cool chase scene in an elevator lift, and they're fighting on these lifts, and Bo-Katan is pushed under a lift, and she manages to stop it with her jetpack, and kind of a cool little scene there.
I was nervous because we already had at least one person killed by an elevator in this season, which we talked about in the previous episode. And I was like, no, not that.
Well, but even, like, because we knew that she was going to survive, because we've seen her in Rebels, even though, like, we know the outcomes of the characters, it still doesn't negate the tension and the emotional impact of what's happening, you know, in these episodes. So then we swap back to Darth Maul, who's currently in communication with the crime lords that he's in charge of, telling them to go into hiding,
including Dryden Voss.
Yes. So Crimson Dawn was there. The Pikes from the Pike Syndicate were also there. The first one, someone pointed out that the species is one of the Fallines, so they assumed that was Black Sun. So all three different crime syndicates.
I thought it was cool that he didn't have a speaking part, or it was just like, it was exactly what I guess I wanted. It's just like, there he is, you know, it's all real, you know.
And it was a blink and you'll miss it kind of thing, but he had very clearly it was Dryden Voss. So then at that point, Maul is talking to Saxon and Rook Kast, and revealing that they liberated him from Sidious and Dooku. And this is a reference to events that are contained in the Son of Dathomir comic series. So I have not read that, but I know that that's where those events unfold. So if you want to go look those up.
And there's some great I think it's like a Star Wars Comics or something is the name of the YouTube channel, but I just watched the other day like 4 or 5 like really good like synopses of those. That was really helpful in my kind of, getting the storyline down, which I guess they did largely because they had punted or had to, like not finish this show years ago. And so it's neat because it was kind of cool. Like in the videos, the guy says at the end, like he says a few things like, it's just so unfortunate that they couldn't finish this, you know, and I'm like, yes.
Now they can.
Yep.
Now it's going to be done.
Yep.
Huzzah.
And I think the Son of Dathomir series was originally meant to be Clone Wars episodes. And so was Dark Disciple, which is the novel written by Christy Golden, which probably both of those have because they've changed mediums, have a really cool uniqueness all on their own. But so at that point, Maul sends Saxon and all his troopers into battle against the Republic and promises that they will die as warriors if they go with him. And they go all off to battle.
He says it is not the way of your people to hide here in the gutters.
There you go.
I was like, Mandalorian.
This is you can just hear them all turn around to each other and say, this is the way.
We bump back to Ahsoka and Bo-Katan, and they are talking about how the occupation is they don't want it to go on much longer, and that Bo-Katan isn't going to tolerate it, and the clone troopers don't really want to be there acting as this police force anyway, and they want to just capture Maul, and then the Republic forces will leave. And of course, at that moment, they're walking into the throne room, and Maul is sitting on the throne.
That's his hero shot right there. Oh my gosh, that was a great scene.
I mean, talk about like just acting like you belong there. Oh, yeah. Like, you know, it's like the most ordinary thing in the world for Zabrak to be on the throne. And he's like, yeah, this is what I do.
That was a great scene.
His decorum.
And then handing Jesse back to him, you know, like, here. Yeah,
run along.
Go on, run along. It's like, who tells a clone to do that? No.
But even before that, Bo-Katan like starts to shoot at him, and he just like uses the Force to like just knock the blaster bolts away. Yeah.
They curve, like it's not even like they go really violently. It's just right.
So yeah, he sends Jesse back to them, and the battle is starting outside, and you can see all the explosions through the windows. And so Bo-Katan runs off to help with the battle outside, and Rex and Jesse are also headed out. Rex is taking Jesse out of harm's way. So we're left with Ahsoka and Maul in the throne room together. And so Maul starts talking to Ahsoka again, kind of laying out again some of the things that are happening, and comments that he just sees himself and Ahsoka as tools for these greater powers. And again mentions that Darth Sidious is behind everything, and he says he's in the shadows always. And he blatantly tells Ahsoka that the Republic has already fallen as well, and that Ahsoka just can't see it, and that the time of the Jedi has passed. And here's now when he's trying to convince Ahsoka to join him, and he says that the Jedi and the Republic can't defeat Sidious, but he says that if Ahsoka joins him together, they can defeat Darth Sidious.
Very reminiscent of Vader.
Yeah. And I just loved that you could see when Ahsoka was making this decision, both she and Maul were so focused in on what was happening and what the possibilities might be, that there's this explosion of the glass there, and they don't flinch an inch. And I just thought, wow, that's a great way to show and not tell, to show how tuned in they are at that moment.
It was really cool cinematography.
Just art.
Beautiful thing. Just it felt like, the Emperor on the Death Star watching the battle in the background, trying to convince Luke to join him. It felt like Vader trying to convince Luke. It just it went back to those really great Jedi moments.
Yeah, and the Emperor trying to convince Rey as well.
Yeah,
with seeing the Starfleet. Yeah,
when everything's up.
But there was a bit of subverting expectations too, because I did not expect to hear Ahsoka say, "I will join you," but. And I forget how she phrased that exactly, but it was like, but you have to answer me one question. And so that's when she wants to know why he wants Anakin.
Yeah, that was an interesting choice to make, because she could have just jumped straight to the question. She didn't have to, agree, like, to join him right away. It's like, yeah. that just shows you that she believes every word that he said. Okay, what he's saying is right. Darth Sidious is behind everything, and we're probably the only people powerful enough to stop him, and the Republic is fallen, and it's too late. You know, that kind of adds like even though obviously the ultimate question is about Anakin, it's like, okay, wow, does she really believe what Maul is saying when it comes to Anakin? Obviously she denies it, but you know, how could she not? That might be just an emotional reaction, but maybe she believes it.
That's what I think. I think that the fact that Ahsoka does believe him, and that she's able to see so clearly, that we see that she is very wise, I think, even at this point in her life. But the thing that she doesn't believe is the thing that is the person she's most attached to. And again, we go back to that idea of having your judgment clouded by your emotions, that ultimately it's not until she really, I think, encounters Anakin in Rebels, where she has that Force vision and she realizes who he is and everything. And I think it's not until that point that she really kind of makes the turn, and she's able to finally let go of that one thing that's been keeping her from being the Jedi she could be.
So she refuses to believe Maul in his portrayal of Anakin as the groomed next apprentice of Darth Sidious, and so rather than join him, she begins to fight Maul instead. And so they have this fight going on inside the throne room, all the while outside the Republic forces are fighting Saxon and all the Mandalorians. And Maul is thrown out of a window by Ahsoka, and she chases him down, and he climbs up on what looks like this kind of scaffolding that's kind of high above the city. And like any good battle scene, there's imminent danger of falling to your death.
Can I just say that I loved Maul's line, "Oh, you have Kenobi's arrogance." That was my favorite line from both of these episodes, because I love that quality in Obi-Wan, and I love that it just annoys Darth Maul so much, or Maul. But yeah, I love that she totally embraced that, and she was like, you'll find that I have many qualities that, you know.
What did he say? Didn't he say he's on that catwalk, and like the one, was it Saxon or someone calls him, and he's just like, no, he's just like, die well, Mandalorian. Absolutely not interested whatsoever in them, their culture. That it's just so dismissive. I could not stop laughing.
Well, and Ahsoka has another great line too. She tells Maul, she goes, "Obi-Wan was right. You are difficult to kill." Yeah. So they continue to fight on these high scaffolding, and the Maul's ship arrives, and he tries to escape, and Ahsoka knocks him down. And in the continued fighting, Maul manages to knock away both of Ahsoka's lightsabers and almost knocks her off the platform. But then we see Ahsoka for the powerful Jedi that she is, and she totally holds her own and turns the tables on him, and manages to knock him off the scaffolding and holds him in the Force from falling to his death, in order that Rex, once they get there, they can actually capture him.
I did not expect her to catch him. I really didn't. I just thought he was going to get away. I don't know.
Yeah, it was an amazing end, and then his rage at his impotence at that point.
Yeah.
You know, he's powerless. He knows what's coming.
We're all gonna die.
Terrified of it. Yeah. and he completely changes his voice too. That the acting on that, you feel just this horror come out of him in that moment. Like, and just seconds before that, he'd been saying, "Just let me fall to my death," you know?
Yeah.
And so, like, he's actually fearing something worse than his own death at this point. And it was intense.
He was like Bill Paxton in Aliens, just losing it. And just you're like, "Oh, screw it, man, we're gonna die." It's like, calm down, man. It's
over, man.
I want to give Sam Witwer some kind of award for this, because I just felt like this episode was like the climax of his career, like as a voice actor, was so brilliant.
Yep.
And I know they did motion capture on oh my gosh, the original Darth Maul.
Oh, Ray Park.
Ray
Yeah.
Park.
Yeah.
I know they did motion capture on him.
Yeah.
And you can see that in the fight scenes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
But I wonder if they did motion capture on Sam Witwer, because the facial expression on Maul was so outstanding in this episode.
I thought that I was thinking along the same lines, but I was thinking that they got the facial reactions of Ray Park because it reminded me of the facial expressions from episode 1.
It's like you forget. It's like, I mean, you know, the whole thing of like thinking of this as a cartoon is just, it's not.
Right.
Yeah, it's incredible how far this has come.
Yeah, these 2 episodes did not fit the. They were a fantastic end to the Clone Wars to tie it back into the main canon because they don't feel like that cartoon anymore. You know, it's like it's grown up.
Yeah.
And you see this character of Ahsoka, and all of a sudden that's it really struck me in these 2 episodes. Like, this has been Ahsoka's story, like the Clone Wars, and I know that she's the fan favorite, and it's kind of evolved from that. But then if you read anything about when she was first introduced, people hated the idea of her of like Anakin never had an apprentice. What is this? This is ridiculous. Why would Anakin have this? And there was like this huge backlash and uproar. And to see how far we've come from that, where she's cheered and she's in all of these different, she touches basically everything in the main canon of Star Wars. It really is. It was a great a celebration of her character in these couple of episodes, and that final scene of her standing on that beam.
Yeah,
you know, the city burning behind her, and just like, and that's it, and that's
she's all alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we still have 2 more episodes.
Yeah.
I know.
Oh man. So yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to think we're as far into the story of the Clone Wars as we are, and or into the Revenge of the Sith as we are, and we've still got 2 more episodes of the Clone Wars to watch. So
yeah. I want to jump back just briefly to the motion capture of Ray Park. If you follow him on Instagram, you can totally, he likes to play with his lightsaber and put videos on Instagram. So like to see that, and then to see the same sort of movements in this episode was really cool. But also to point out that Lauren Mary Kim did the motion capture for Ahsoka Tano for the fight scenes with Maul, and she is the same person who did the stunt doubles for the Armorer in The Mandalorian and Omera in The Mandalorian.
Awesome.
So
cool.
That was another pretty cool connection. And then another kind of final random question that I have for you guys is this episode was called The Phantom Apprentice. Who does that refer to?
Anakin.
Yes.
All 3 of them.
Yeah. Him, her, Maul. Yeah. In some way, I think you could make that argument.
Yep. I picked Maul and Anakin, but I was totally Catholic and went both and. It's both of them. So.
Well, I think too the moment where they're in that throne room and Maul is basically offering for her to be his apprentice. Her response is not, "Sure, I'll be your apprentice." Her response is, "I'll join you, but you have to answer me something. We are equals. If this is going to happen, it's because we are equals." And that step up for her was just awesome. It was such a great moment.
Cool. Do you guys have any other final thoughts before we wrap this thing up?
Do we have to wait 2 more weeks?
No, we don't.
No, we don't.
We have to wait 2 weeks before we talk about it, but
right.
Yes. But yeah, to just throw this out there, it Friday we'll release the next episode, and then on Monday, May the 4th, the final episode is going to drop.
Yep.
So,
and I think that's also, they got a big day planned, because isn't that when the Disney Gallery thing launches too? Yep. I think starting. So yeah.
And when The Rise of Skywalker hits Disney Plus is streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a big day.
Big day, yeah. And we're doing a live stream ourselves,
and
right?
So we are going to be doing a Facebook Live event at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. So that's 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. if I can get this good right in my head.
Hold on. See, we need Galactic Standard Time.
Yes, we do. At least on this show.
So next week, Monday, May the 4th, please join us on Facebook Live for a fun episode where we will be devoting the entire thing to what being a Star Wars fan means to us, and we'll talk. We won't get into spoilers in terms of the final episode of the Clone Wars. But we will talk about, some of the other newsworthy items that have come across in the recent months, the High Republic, etc., those sorts of things. And definitely join us, and you feel free to throw questions at us that we can answer on the show live for you, whether that's kind of the Star Wars party questions, what color of a lightsaber would you have, and those kind of things. You can tweet us or you can send us messages on Facebook or through our email as well. So send us questions beforehand, but also during the live show. I'll try to be watching the chat, and feel free to throw out questions there as well. So join us on Monday, May the 4th for that. And of course, may the 4th be with you all. So,
and with your spirit.
There it is. Yes.
There it is.
So, okay, well, then that's it from us this evening. And of course, as always, what did you guys, our listeners, think of these episodes of the Clone Wars? Definitely be sure to contact us and email us or comment on our Facebook or Twitter page to let us know. Our email is starwars@sqpn.com, and you can find StarQuest on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia and on Twitter at SQPN. And of course, we would like to take a moment right now to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Star Wars, including Pierre M., Mona B., Carolyn S., Father Brian, and Stephanie L. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Star Wars and all the various shows that we make here at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Also, of course, be sure to subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or the like. Also, you can subscribe to us through the SQPN YouTube channel. And to find any previous episodes of The Secrets of Star Wars, please visit sqpn.com/Star Wars. So, like we mentioned, next week is Monday, May the 4th, and we will do our Facebook Live that evening at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. And we will then be getting back to our normal schedule the week after, when at that point, we will review the final 2 episodes of Season 7 of The Clone Wars. So definitely be sure to tune in to Disney Plus and keep up on the final episodes before listening to us then. So until next week, Angela Cialana, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Wars.
Oh, it's my pleasure, as always.
Thomas Sanjurjo, thanks for joining us this evening.
It was a wonderful conversation.
Mike Creevy, thanks for joining us.
Father, can I put a real quick, shameless prayer request in?
Sure.
Because we do have, so baby girl Creevy number 2 is coming sometime soon. So if everybody could just please keep us in your prayers, and I will probably be in and out of shows for a couple of weeks, probably after next week, but who knows? So thank you all for your prayers. We're excited to share her with you all too.
Awesome. Absolutely.
Hey. And finally, Andrew Hermes, thanks for joining us this evening.
Yes, thank you. And can we just all agree real quick that Ahsoka will free Darth Maul on the next episode? Yeah, we're all in agreement there?
Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah.
And once again, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.